Welcome to the second session of the CBA's Forging a Bear's Head tutorial. In the first session we looked at roughing out the head with the eye socket and the beard in place. What we're going to do now is turn our attention to filling in the remainder of the face details. We're going to start with the forehead and ears, and it really doesn't matter which way around you do those two, and then we're going to move on to the rest of the work. Looking at the forehead, I want you to locate the edge of your fuller along the middle of the snout and work back at a slight angle to the center line of the head to create what I'm going to call a diverging V. You will also note, I hope, that I've knocked off the corners to the edge of the head of what will become the ears, just to get rid of that sharp edge. Using the same fuller held at an angle to the head, we're going to start pushing back the material that makes the ears, and you can see this in two photographs. Here's the rough out of the ear, and here's how I start. What I'm paying attention to is not cutting this edge line of the eyebrow. I'm just pushing this back, and a bear's ears are actually quite a ways back on his head, so you've got a little bit of artistic license there, making the best looking bear's head. It might not be anatomically correct, but it's certainly going to look good. Let's have a look at the tool we need. Aside from the fuller that we're already using to push the material back, you are going to need a pointy thing. This I think is about 3/8 in diameter and 3/8 long. And then you're going to use what I'm going to call a concave fuller. And I suspect that is about 1/16 of an inch thick and maybe 3/8 to half an inch wide. You're going to drive the pointy thing in, aiming basically towards the middle of the neck. If you hold your tool too flat, you're going to make a hole in the back of the ears, and if you hold your tool too steep, you're going to make a concavity that you can't really recover from. So just aim for the sort of middle of the back of the neck. We're going to drive the pointy thing in first, and then we're going to use the fuller, parking one corner in the middle of the hole, and we're just going to run around the outside edge, just smoothing it out and trying to create some hair-like shape. Let's have a look at the video and see how that goes. It's me knocking off the sharp section of the ears, and I think I start with the ears here rather than the forehead, but again, it doesn't really matter, I don't think. If you're on a fishing trip here, you'll see I'm changing the angle. If I hold the tool too low, I'm going to skip off. And if I hold it too high, I run the risk of damaging the eyebrow or taking more material than I need. So I'm fishing up and down with every blow. So I've got that started. I will come back and do a little more on that right hand side, but I want to get both ears started before I start fussing about with them. And knocking the sharp corner off before we started stops you from getting that sort of pointy ears. So here I am with the forehead. Just a shallow diverging V starting from the middle of the snout, coming up to the edge of the ears, and then get rid of any sharp lines just by bouncing your fuller up and down on anything that appears to be not in place. This is optional. If you want a little more shape to your ears, you can run the fuller around the back of the ear as I'm doing. Certainly you can run your hammer on the ear if you've got some pointy ears that you don't like. So shape the ears as best you can. You can see here with the pointy tool, I'm aiming for the middle of the neck. Get the middle of the ear, and then just drive that in. Don't go too deep, just after a suggestion. This is another shot of me pre-shaping the ears. So I've yet to use the punchy tool in this, or the pointy tool in this particular section. You can see I'm using the fuller just to sort of round out the ears. And again, don't be afraid to use your hammer on top of the ears if you don't like the shape. Here's the pointy tool, I hope. And this is just a chrome moly tool, nothing special. and that's me using the concave fuller. You see I'm using light rapid blows just to sort of wash that material out, creating some hair strands for the ears. The hairs are important because it keeps the flies out of the ear, so they actually have quite a lot of hair around the ears. I don't care for that particular pointy bit on that left hand ear, so I might just come back with my hammer and smooth that out, make it more round. So once you've got the ears formed, it's time to turn our attention basically to the front, and we're going to start cutting for the jaw, making the teeth and making the nose. I'm going to split this front part of the snout into thirds, and I've got 2/3 on top, 1/3 below. We're going to cut this with a round chisel, and remember that a tool will migrate to the path of least resistance. And as we've just created a high resistance, low resistance type of scenario, the tool is going to migrate, and you can see it in the back here of this right hand bear. The tool is going to migrate to the lower jaw. Let's have a look at the tool first. So I'm using a curved chisel, and of course curved chisels can come in a variety of flavors, meaning that they can be ground with the bevel all on the inside, they can be ground with the bevel on the outside, or in this case they can be ground with the bevel somewhere near the middle. I would suggest that you make the tool first. Again, this is going to be covered in a separate video, and then practice on a piece of 1/2 inch square stock locked in the vise, and then just see if you like the grind that you have and trim it accordingly. Let's have a look at the video and see how that works. Two-thirds, 1/3. I'm just trying to make that work. And again, this is a fishing trip. I'm going to hit it a few times and I'm going to change the angle of my tool. At some stage you will see me pull down on the tool, trying to force it upwards into the upper part of the snout. And that's it. You can see I've got a big gap there between the tool and the upper part of the snout, so I'm pulling down, trying to guide that tool to the back of the mouth where I want it to go. At some stage I'm just going to rock this tool, like now, around the edges just to widen the mouth without necessarily cutting anymore. As we're at a dark heat, I am changing that curve to the roof of the mouth just by working at a dark heat. Notice how I've just made that quite a bit more curved to the top, and I'm just going to sort of round out the top where the nose will be, or the nostrils will be. You can see with our 1 inch that we left for our snout, it soon goes away. This is another view of the same work. So by the time we've made the beard and then cut for the lower jaw, you don't have an awful lot of material there for the upper part of the jaw and the nostrils or the nose. Again, keep your eye on the angle of the tool. You'll see me start to pull down on it at some stage. You can see it's definitely diving down. I need to fight that a little bit, so I'm pulling down with the tool just to try and keep it upwards in the jaw. And then I'm just going to elongate the cut a little bit without necessarily doing any more to the back of the jaw. Once we've got that lower jaw cut, now we've got to go in there and start to make for our teeth and other details, the tongue. So let's have a look at that first. First thing I want you to do is to grab a chisel, and we're just going to incise a line across this the jaw here, and I want you to sort of come in at a bit of an angle here so you've got more material to push in to make the incisors. So we're going to incise this line. We're going to use a side set to push this material up, stand it up to sort of make the teeth, and then we're going to come in and cut for the tongue. You notice how close I am to this front edge when I make my cut for the tongue, because I don't want a lot of stored material here that's going to interfere with me making the canines. Let's have a look at the tools. I've got a normal hot cut chisel that I'm going to use to make the incising mark. I've got a side set, I want to say that is 5/16 to 3/8, probably closer to 5/16. It has got radius on the sides and on the top, and I just knocked the sharp off on what will be the bottom, and it's got an angle of about, let's call it 70 to 80 degrees. And then at some stage we'll come in here and use this, the narrower of the concave fuller. So again, we're going to create this line. I start from the front and then work the sides, and I want you to pay attention to knocking in a bit of an angle to make more material available to make the incisors. Let's have a look at the video and see how that works. Splitting the material. 2 blows to the corners, just standing that material up. Let's have another look. And there we are, that's us marking, getting ready for another heat and probably coming down the edge. And I'm cutting in, let's call it a 1/16 if you wish. I want you to note that I am working out of position. I'm holding the tools sort of upside down with my hand. That's to give you or the camera a decent look at what's going on. So if it looks like I'm a little uncomfortable and out of position, it's because I am. Like now. Here's the side set. Just trying to grab that line and just push that, what will become the teeth material, into the mouth. And you can see that stored extra material here that is going to become the incisor. That's why we made that cut at the diagonal. Here's our tong. So we're going to cut for the tong. Do we need a tong? You don't necessarily need the tong, but you do need the cut. So if you cut the tong and it falls off, don't cry about it. What we need to do is get rid of some of the material in the lower part of the jaw so that we leave material, a thin band of material for the teeth. And you can see it here, this concavity, and the teeth are on the edge of that concavity. Once we make the incisors, we're going to use the same tool, the same curve tool, and we'll look at that in a moment, that we used to cut for the tong. We're going to come in here from the middle of the teeth, and we're just going to cut down at a slight angle on both sides, and we're going to make these incisors. Let's have a look at the tool. We're going to start with this curve tool. I want to say that's a 5/8 curve tool, probably 1/2 inch ID, and that one is out of H13 because it's, one, very sharp, and two, subject to a lot of heat. And I don't think that the chrome moly that the remainder of the tools are made out of would stand up to that sort of abuse. Let's have a look at the video and see how that works. Coming fairly close to the edge of the teeth, digging in, and then I'm just trying to scoop as much material as I can. Be careful going left and right. You can twist it so the sides come up and down, but careful swinging left and right, otherwise you cut the tong and make it narrower. There I am swinging up and down, but I'm trying to avoid going left and right. Let's have another look at the teeth in a moment. Sorry, I thought I'd finished. Another view. Just note I swing a little bit to the right here, and I'm just made the tong a little narrower, so that was a mistake. So you can twist it up and down, but try not to swing it left and right. And I'm just trying to recover from that mistake now. So you see I took another bite. Okay, having another look at the teeth, we're going to use the same tool as we used to cut the tongue. We're going to start in the middle of the teeth mark in the front, and we're just going to come down here and create enough material to make an incisor. If you get a chance, try and push this material out and not into the jaw. It's a lot easier if the material is coming out of the jaw. And you can see it's the incisors and the eyes that give this bear a bit of character. So let's try and be careful when we work this. Oh, be careful going down to a dark heat. We've got blue brittle, and that's a very delicate piece. I want to have a look at the tools first. We're going to cut for the tooth with this. We are going to stand the incisors up with our narrow concave fuller, and I want to say that that is 1/4 of an inch to 5/16, and that is 1/16 of an inch, maybe thick. And then I've got this going around the corner sort of sharp chisel, and that's going to help me put the details of the teeth in. Let's have a look at the video and see how it works. I'm going to give you a couple of views of this so I can see my hands in the way here. Trying to push the material out to the front if you can. Another view of the same work. Now we're going to come in with that concave fuller, and we're just trying to stand that up. You can see I'm rotating that fuller, light rapid blows, and I'm just trying to stand the tooth up and shape it somewhat. And I'm hoping you can see that there is an advantage to bringing the material towards you and not having to go and find it when it's inside of the jaw. Trying to shape the back of the tooth there. So now I'm coming in with that angled chisel, and I'm just starting to create some details for the teeth. I'm going on top first, and then I'll come around the edge and create the sides of the teeth. And that concludes this second session of the forging a bear's head. We'll finish up the remainder of the details in the last section that will be coming right up.